Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Q4 FY24 earnings conference call of Tanla Platforms Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during this conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star, then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Ritu Mehta, Investor Relations. Thank you, and over to you.
Good evening and welcome to our Q4 earnings call. Joining with us today are Uday Reddy, Founder, Chairman and CEO, Deepak Goyal, Executive Director and Chief Business Officer, and Arvind Vishwanathan, CFO. Before we start the call, let me draw your attention to the fact that today's discussion may feature statements that are forward-looking in nature. All statements other than statements of historical fact could be deemed forward-looking in nature. Such statements are inherently subject to risk and uncertainties, some of which cannot be predicted or quantified. A detailed disclosure in this regard is mentioned in the results presentation that is uploaded on our website. Audio recording and transcript will be available on the website soon. Hope everybody got a chance to go through our investor presentation and shareholder letter. The management team will be happy to answer any questions. We now request the operator to open the floor for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We'll now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask the question. The first question is from the line of Amit Agarwal from Keyway. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My question is regarding the presentation is showing that in the quarter 4 we have platform business is going at the rate of 10%. Previously it was going at a higher rate. So is this the new normal and any particular reason that it has slowed down in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. Thanks, Amit. So Amit, if you remember, we had talked about, exiting one of the deals on the firewall deals with Vodafone some time back, and this quarter showed a portion of that impact, right? If you normalize for it, the gross margin of the platform business actually grew 35%, right? So in many ways, we've been having that impact and we have overcome it, right? So I would say the momentum of the business is very much intact. If anything, we're doing quite well there. We onboarded first commercial customer on ATP. We started seeing revenues flow in. So we're quite bullish. Definitely, 10% is not the new normal. 35%. That's the number I've already mentioned, right? So we kind of seeing a very, very strong growth. And I think as the other platforms, particularly newer ones, scale up, Amit, you will see this go back to the growth rates that we've seen before.
So would you see the jump in the next quarter immediately or after 2 or 3 quarters?
So Amit, we don't really want to give a guidance, but let me put it this way. Definitely as we look out for the year ahead, we are quite bullish on the platform business. So let me leave it at that.
And my second and last question is, if you read the newspaper, the UPI transaction is going at the rate of...
Your audio is a little breaking. Can you please check if you have proper reception?
If you read the newspaper, the UPI transaction is going at the rate of 40 or 50%. But that doesn't show in our, and we are, I think that is proportionate to UPI transactions. But our business is not growing at that rate. Any particular reason?
Deepak, do you want to answer that?
Deepak sir, may I request you to unmute your line, please?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Is it question pertaining to the UPI transaction you're talking about?
Yes. The question is, UPI transaction is growing very fast, and how is that, reflected in our growth rate given our share? That's the question.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the UPI transactions are going, growing, but what has happened is that banks are not sending, notifications or messages on each and every transaction, so they are curtailing that. Though that is, and this is under discussion. So I mean, let's say some banks have not sending messages for, let's say, up to 100 rupees of transactions. Right. So not everything is actually resulting into, messaging business for us.
So that's a disappointment, or in the future that would directly proportionate to our growth rate?
No. So how we see it is that the discussions are going on. Even and banks are talking to the regulator, and all that is going on right now. And I would see that that should in the future the transactions would start coming. I mean, notifications will start going for those messages as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. Next question is from the line of Anil from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Good evening, management team. Congratulations on good results for the quarter. I had two questions. One is that if you could give details about OTT revenue as a percentage of total revenue in the fourth quarter, and similar percentage for the fiscal 24. So that is one question. Second is that if you could throw some more light on ATP, we were expecting more licensing deals to happen this quarter. So if you could give an update regarding where ATP is based on expectations, what has been the performance? Thank you.
So let me give a view on the first question that you asked, Anil. For the quarter, the OTT contribution was around 18% of our total consolidated revenues, right? For the full year, it was about 12.5%. And for FY23, that number was about 4%. So it kind of indicates to you the kind of shift that we have done and the kind of pivot that we have done to scale our business from an OTT standpoint. On ATP, Uday? So on ATP, I think, see, anytime you are launching a platform which is greenfield without competition in the market, right? The process of price discovery, process of sale is always trickier and longer. The sales cycles are longer. Now we've got our first kind of signed client in January, right, when we disclosed to the market. So we are having multiple talks, and definitely there is a lot more definitive traction because there is one, proof of the pudding is there in terms of, one deal. So that is happening. I think Uday mentioned it last quarter and mentioned it this quarter. Obviously the pace is a little slower than what we would like because the problem is real. The solution addresses this problem. But I still see a good amount of funnel and interesting traction as far as this is concerned.
Okay. I had a couple follow-on questions. One was regarding ATP itself. In this, I mean, earlier on we have articulated a vision of achieving 100 crores gross profit in each of the segments of Wisely. So would we be able to achieve this 100 crore gross profit in the case of ATP Wisely in the coming year? That was one follow-on question. The second follow-on question is, if you could also break out what was the SMS revenue last year, full year, this year, full year, last year, fourth quarter, and this year, fourth quarter.
So, Anil, your first question on ATP, right? That if obviously, if you look at the problem that we are trying to address, definitely there is a market which is probably much higher than the number that you mentioned, right? So, obviously, from a perspective of the opportunity ahead of us, and these are global opportunities, right? They're not just limited to India. definitely we see that potential. Now the timing of how quickly we will realize it, whether we will realize it in year, whether we will realize, that's very difficult to kind of predict, right? But all I can tell you is from a opportunity size for this area and this platform, it's quite high, right? But I can't give you a timeline on by when we can reach it, right? So I've given the numbers on OTP, on OTT, right? Everything other than OTT effectively is SMS. So if we have like 18% of our revenues to be OTT in Q4, I mean, there's a very small component of email and voice, but everything else largely is SMS.
Okay, no, I was more interested in knowing whether the international SMS headwinds that you have been facing, has that process bottomed out? Has it got completed? Or is it like in the third quarter, there was a volume decline in international or ILD SMS. What was the experience? Was it still declining in the fourth quarter? And can you say that that process is now over, or a few more quarters are more left for that for international SMSs to find their bottom and then start growing from there again?
Yeah. So maybe I will give an answer and then I will request Deepak to supplement this, right, Anil? So we talked about this entire shift to OTT and having that as an impact on the international messaging business. I think we had some residual impact of whatever decrease in volumes happened in Q3 in Q4, but I would say that there was not necessarily incremental impact beyond the residual impact or carry forward impact of Q3, right? So I would think it has bottomed out in that sense from an opportunity, right? So today the international messaging business contribution for us is around 25%, and not all of it is subject to what we call ILD, right? So there are also international businesses that we have. But I will also ask Deepak to give you a perspective on how he sees it and what we are doing on this space. Deepak?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Anilji. Yeah, so I as Arvind said, that process is bottomed out, absolutely. I mean, we shared, in the previous quarters that even WhatsApp, some business moved to WhatsApp. Now you must have heard that WhatsApp has increased the prices for, ILD messages, and they are going to relaunch it from July or something. So how we see it as an opportunity for us to grow that business now. So not only on the ILD SMS side, but also we see that these tech giants would adopt WhatsApp, and we have a good, we are in good situation to have a play there, and new use cases would emerge around that. And we see that, overall this business, we will see some growth going forward basis.
Okay, great. I think if I were to just get one more comment from you, is that, look, there is a kind of a cancelling out that was happening during especially the third and maybe the fourth quarter also, where SMS revenue was on the international side was declining, and WhatsApp and RCS revenue, OTT revenue was going up. So this can be taken, fiscal 24 can be taken as a year of adjustment, you can say. As you look ahead, I mean, assuming that the ILD SMS revenue has bottomed out and the national SMS anyway has its own growth momentum, and now you mentioned that 18% of fourth quarter revenue came from OTT, and also in the letter it is mentioned that 500 crore run rate for only WhatsApp. So, I mean, can you sort of throw some light on fiscal 25, where the headwinds no longer are operating and the tailwinds come up? So, what is the outlook, I guess, taking into account the slowdown of SMS and the rapid growth in all these OTT platforms that you have invested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Arvind, please.
No, so maybe I'll give a view and then, Deepak and Uday can add, right? So, we don't give guidance, Anil, as you well know. So, you will not be able to get me to give a number on that. But clearly, as we said, and we've kind of talked about it in our launches, in our partnerships, we are betting big on OTT, we are betting big on platforms, and those should, definitely accelerate, right? And as Deepak said, we have a good rhythm. We've added a lot of customers in FY24, right? That will also schedule well. I think we are definitely optimistic in terms of the opportunities ahead of us. Some of them we need to see how quickly they translate, but that's how I would kind of summarize our outlook at this point.
Great. I will come back in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, you may press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Amit Chandra from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. So my question is on the OTT revenue. Obviously, we have seen significant scale in OTT coming. Okay, so from here on, how to see the growth rate for OTT? If you can throw some light on how big the market would be and what our market share would be in the OTT space and how fast the market is expanding. And also in terms of the recent tie-ups we have done on the ONDC side and also on the tie-ups with like Google and Meta. So how this would impact our OTT revenues and how do we see it, say, from 2 years from here?
So, Deepak, do you want to give a perspective on what we are seeing on OTT? I can come with the numbers later, but maybe it'll be good to get a perspective on where you're seeing the opportunities on OTT.
Hi, Amit. I mean, as far as OTT as a market is concerned, right? If you see that each and every brand is adopting it in a big way. Earlier, it was more about marketing, messages, promotional messages, and so on. Now, there's a big focus is there on utility, where enterprise customers want to send bills, they want to send all those PDF files, statements, all of that on OTT. I mean, even largest of the banks you would see, they are using WhatsApp and other channels a lot. So as far as growth is concerned of this overall OTT as a space, I mean, it's growing by 60-70%. If you really see. So it's a huge growth which is happening in this particular space, and brands are adopting it in a big way.
And so in terms of our market share, if you can share a number that how big the market would be in India right now. And obviously, is it fair to assume that we are one of the largest player operating in OTT or second largest?
Arvind, you would like to answer?
So Amit, Uday here. The way I see is, okay, if you look at the Meta revenues of last year, our estimate is they have clocked around 1,600 crores for last year. The total revenues of Meta, that is WhatsApp revenues for India, 1,600 crores. Out of that, we did around 365 to around 400 crores last year, right? This year, Meta, which is WhatsApp, is expected to do around probably 2,500 crores. Okay, and we have plans to double our revenues from last year, which is around from 370 crores to we should have to move to around 700 crores. That's on Meta, which is on WhatsApp, right? Secondly, when it comes to RCS, as we mentioned in my last letter, we are the market leaders and we would like to retain that. So it's too early to comment. RCS just started the journey last year, and as RCS revenues, the Google revenues from RCS from India is pretty basic last year. Okay, but this year I think we are expected to do well. And out of that, we would like to retain. We would like to have at least 50% revenue market share. Okay, as we mentioned earlier, we have deployed or we are deploying our map platform with Vodafone. With that, what happens is our margins will be better off on the RCS, and definitely we would like to have 50% revenue market share on RCS. That's the second one, right? When it comes to Truecaller, okay, we have the exclusive partnership. We have been doing with the business for the last 2 years with them, and we have extended our partnership with the Truecaller for the next 2 years on the exclusive basis, right? So 100% will be with us, and we're doing good, and we're going to accelerate even on the TC. So if you look at the blended OTT, okay, probably we'll be the largest OTT player from India. I think the second and third, fourth, three of them together not even equal to us in the next 12 months. So I would like to leave it like that.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation, sir. And also on the enterprise side, if I X out WhatsApp, so there has been no softness in the enterprise organic revenue X of like values first, if I see. So that obviously is coming through the ILD weakness, and you have mentioned that it has come down from say 40% revenue to 25% of revenue. So if you can quantify what has been the drop in revenues for ILD in FY24, that would be helpful. And in terms of the fourth quarter contribution, how do we see it, whether it has bottomed out or we can see some more softness? And also the volumes that are coming on to the ILD as of now, is it more like critical volumes, or there is a probability of these volumes also to shift to other alternate channels?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start, Amit, and then I'll request Deepak to add on to it. So you're not calling out at a channel level on growth rates for all of these, right? So we're more giving a perspective. I would say that we had a sequential degrowth starting from Q2, right, which also flew into Q3 and had an impact in Q4 also, more from a residual perspective. I think it is kind of bottomed out now, because most of the use cases are really not so replaceable in that sense, right? But I don't see this to be a very big or kind of flattish kind of business or marginal growth. It's not going to be a big growth engine per se, right, in the coming year. But Deepak, it'd be great for you to share the perspective.
No, Arvind, I think you said it. So yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. And on the platform side, sir, so we had the ATP revenues coming in, and also we had the impact of the exit of VI deal. So how much would be the exit impact, and how much would be the residual impact? As you said, will come in quarter one as well. So if you can just give some sense on that, and also on the ATPs and the ATP revenue side, you mentioned that the ATP talks are going on with banks, but the conversions are a bit lower. So what is the reason, as per your understanding, why the conversions are lower? And also in terms of the ATP revenue contribution, whether it's a start and we can see some more adoption, or is it or the ATP revenues is linked to volumes? How is the revenue model out there?
So, Amit, let me answer the first question. Like we said, we exited the deal. There will be some impact in Q1, but I think we are also seeing a lot of traction in the platforms that we have deployed. Okay, so I don't want to give a guidance at a platform level, but definitely, I don't expect a repeat of what happened in Q4 and Q1 from a sequential standpoint. Okay, from an ATP, two elements to it. One is it's a very unique deal in the sense that it's a subscription-based revenue stream, right? In the purest of the sense, it's a pure SaaS subscription-based billing per user per month kind of construct that one has. So that's the kind of nature of the revenue there. The reason for delay is that it's a product that doesn't have too many comparables. So there are a lot of internal discussions that ends up happening with the customer just to get the process right. A lot of questions. The sales process is long. So we're going through it, right? We've created a lot of leads, and then we are hopeful to convert a few.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, and all the best, sir.
Thanks, Amit.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star and one to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Anil Nahata, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I will just follow up on the question from Amit regarding the pending losses or whatever losses are still to be there on the VI firewall deal. I mean, if I look at the gross profits margins that you have reported and the gross profits, I mean, you have mentioned that 13% has been the gross profit year-on-year growth. But for the VI deal going away, it would have been 35%. Okay. Basically, it means that 17 crore nearly has gone out of this quarter. If I just add up these numbers and do the mathematics, and if I also recollect the VI entire impact was supposed to be around 65 to 170 crores rupees, which you had reported a couple of quarters back. So, I mean, 17 crore annualized will lead up to that number. Then why are we saying that still some more pain is to come on that account?
So I don't think you're doing the math right, Anil. I'll share with you separately. See, you have to remove both from the base as well as the current quarter as well as the base. So what we are saying as 35% growth is the growth if there was no network VI deal in Q4 of last year vis-a-vis Q4 of this year. Okay. So the base also changes, and that's the basis of this. As we have captured the total revenue size on a quarterly basis, which we communicated is very much true. That's about 18 to 19 CR a quarter, right? That's the cumulative impact of the VI deal, which is kind of getting spread out over Q3, Q4, and some amount of residual in Q1. If you remove it from both the numerator and denominator from Q4 of this year and Q4 of last year, then you would see the full impact, and that's why if you see this growth, right, and just to give you a sense, right, if we say that we delivered a GM in this quarter of 88 CR, right, and we delivered a GM last year same time of 78 CR, right, and let's say 78 CR at the full impact. So excluding that would be something like 59. So that's how you should do it. Then you will understand why this 35% is coming in.
Okay. That's a very unique way of doing this thing, but fair enough, I will do it that way again. So can you quantify what is left to be absorbed in the next quarter, or that is something that is not possible?
It will be around 5 CR left, Anil.
Okay. That's good enough. Thank you so much for that. The second thing is on the Wisely ATP. I mean, this was, Uday had touted it as one of the best products to come out of Tanla. And sincerely, I had seen a demo and I believe that to be true. I mean, it's an extraordinary product. And it has been like nearly 4 or 5 months when the 3 banks' trials were over and everything. And probably one of those banks has picked up a deal with you, or maybe it's another bank. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, with this kind of a product which are able to bring down the losses and the spamming and everything else, I mean, even after the commercial trials, I understand there's a price discovery mechanism and all, but still, it is still a lot of time. So are there any regulatory hurdles that you are seeing in this, or there is lack of regulatory tailwind which is impacting this? I mean, price is one thing, but price can be discovered. But other than prices, are there anything else that is going on?
So, Anil, I think a lot of people want to know more on the ATP. I owe you guys an explanation here. Let me explain that. Okay. So the problem is so big. A lot of scams are happening on SMS. A lot of scams are happening on the voice. The problem statement is so big in India, not only in India, globally. That's number one, right? And secondly, the platform is able to curtail the scams that we have demonstrated to all 3 banks. That is also fact. That's the second one, right? Where we are facing a bit of challenge is, see, for example, I cannot really pick up any bank here. What is happening here is probably the central bank is not very clear whether who's going to carry this liability. So, for example, somebody is going to, lose the money because somebody was scammed. Okay, right? And are the banks are liable for the money, or the individual is liable for the money? The banks strongly believe that it is the individual who has to take care of themselves. Right? They are the one who is giving away their credentials to the scammer. Okay, right? Bank never asks you to share your credentials, right? Okay, so that there is a bit of confusion here, unless until the regulation is clear. Okay, once any bank customer loses the money, okay, who's going to take the liability? Is it the customer himself or herself, or the bank? There is a bit of confusion here. Okay, right? So that's where the banks are saying that we are not liable to pay the money to our customers, okay, because they are the one who has given away their credentials, okay. So that is one of the reasons why, though the banks are under the impression that their customers are losing a lot of money, okay. And secondly, they're also worried about their brand. Not that I'm not saying that the banks are not worried about their customers, they're not worried about the brand, okay. But there is a bit of the confusion here. Who's going to bear that liability? Okay, so that's the reason. Yes, banks are agreeing with us that there is a problem statement is so big. The solution is very good, but why should we pay the money to you guys? So why don't you collect the money from the users? Okay, right? So there is a bit of confusion here. Till the time the regulators are very clear about who's going to carry the liability.
Thank you. That seems more understandable, because otherwise there is no reason not to adapt. Thank you for that answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Brahmanand Reddy, individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, Uday and team. Congratulations for the excellent performance. The two questions I had is one in digital platforms. Okay, I am assuming that based on your numbers, it contributed 50% on the gross margin. In the 759 crores, what we achieved, almost 50% is contributed by digital platforms. If so, what is when can we see a growth of 25% range in the digital platforms? And do we see any competition in the digital platforms with other companies?
So, Brahmanand, digital platforms contributes about 34% of our gross profits for the full year. We've kind of had a track record of growing over 20% gross profit YOY for almost 14 quarters in a row, right? This is the first quarter, I think, in the last 15 quarters where the growth rate has been sub 20. And that's because if you've seen some of the earlier questions in the call, which we addressed on one particular transaction kind of scaling down, right? So this is something that we are quite bullish on. We've done a lot of work on this. So that's how we are seeing it. So we have a lot of potential here, and platforms to take us to the growth rates that you are talking about and beyond.
Any foreseeable competition from any other companies today?
Yes and no. Okay, for example, when it comes to the threat intelligence, which you call it as a wisely ATP, right? So we don't have any competition, not only in India but global market. Okay, but certain platforms we may tend to, for example, when it comes to our DLT platform, which we call it as a two-block platform, where we have the consortium with Tech Mahindra and IBM. Okay, so so we cannot afford to say that we are the only one player in India. We kind of have the consortium among ourselves. So yes and no. Certain places we collaborate, certain places we compete.
That will be helpful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Anil from Centrum India. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity once again. So Uday, this is on a broader basis. See, you've been investing very heavily on technology, and you've been hiring top talent, over the past many quarters. So obviously, this is in anticipation of some developments. So, and in the past you have shared that perhaps, the Indian regulators are not moving in terms of data privacy, etc., at the pace which you would have liked. So if you can give a fresh comment on that, that is one part. Second was that on ATP now we have some actual data, like, real-time, real-world data is available of how it is performing with one of the banks. And within India, there is a confusion regarding who carries the liability, individual or the bank. And you had opened up a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia also some time back. Can this not be sort of taken overseas based on the real world data that we have now and approaching the telcos who might rightly be the candidates for buying ATP?
So Anil, that's a good question. Let me, when I say regulators, I'm not intending at Indian regulators, whether it is a central regulator or it be the telecom regulator. Right? I'm talking about the global regulators. But having said that, as I reported earlier, for example, Singapore came out with the regulation, and so is Australia. Okay, now all the governments are now coming out with the regulations. Okay, in the sense who's supposed to implement this product, whether it is a bank or the telco, in case of Singapore, what the Singapore regulators, for example, telecom regulator has closely worked with the banking regulator, and both decided to take the ownership, saying that okay, now we both have to come together and take the ownership of the curtailing the scams. Okay, so it all depends on the regulator. So who's going to blink first, right? But at the end of the day, the regulations have to be in place, whether it is the telecom regulator or the banking regulator. They have to have regulation. Before, for example, even if you look at the DLT platform, which we deployed in 2019 February, okay, till the time we had the regulation, nobody has deployed to prevent the spam. Okay. Similarly, we are looking for a regulation, whether it is in Saudi, whether it is in Australia or in Singapore. So this product needs a bit of regulation. And the problem statement is so big, the solution is there, and who's going to pay the money? It all depends on the regulations will clarify who's going to pay the money. So we're just waiting for the regulation in India and outside India.
Great. And considering that, the Singaporeans have already taken a few steps, can one expect in the coming quarters something on the overseas side as regards to ATP?
No, that won't move that fast, Anil. Once the regulation comes, they give almost a year to deploy the platforms. Okay, it's not that only Tanla has got the platform. We don't know who's going to develop it, right? So it takes a bit of time. Once the regulation is clear, they'll give a bit of time to the banks and the telcos to implement the platform. It takes a bit of time, but once we have the regulation is in place, it's a question of time.
Okay, great today. And one last thing on GDPR, etc. Like in Europe, etc. Data privacy has really acquired a lot of salience. Anything on India side that you are seeing, and where your products can be, more relevant?
No, when it comes to data privacy, the DPDP bill, as you know, this is passed by both the parliaments, and but the board has not formed as yet. Probably they will form the government post-election. They will form the board. Once the board is in place, they come out with the regulations and business rules. And probably they may give one year's time for us to implement the consent and preference management the tool.
Okay, and this is for EU, not for India, right?
No, I'm talking about India. So both the parliaments in India have passed the DPDP bill, okay? But right. For them to implement DPDP bill, they need to have a board, okay, right? The board comes with the business rules. We are expecting the board to form and also come out with the business rules sometime in August of this year.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next question is from the line of Sharad Koil, individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. I just had a few questions around the gross margin. Now that WhatsApp has scaled to a reasonable number of roughly 400 crores, could you just share what the gross profit, the gross margin on that business is relative to the rest of the enterprise? I know the blended number for the enterprise business is close to 19.7%, but can you just specifically give me an idea of what it is for the WhatsApp business?
Yeah. So we're not calling out gross margin, but it will be, reasonably similar to the enterprise margins. Given that we are in a little bit of investment phase, it may be marginally lower, but not very different for the year.
And is the model similar to what it was with the telcos, wherein you get whatever the number is, close to 20% or 15 to 20% of the, what you collect on behalf of the telcos, so that, as the business grows, at least from the telco side, what I understood is that if they jack up the prices by, if they double the prices from 12 paisa to 25 paisa, is the pricing for WhatsApp similar to that? So now WhatsApp is doubling its pricing starting what Deepak said is sometime in July. Does that automatically mean that Tanla receives double that amount?
See, in general, the philosophy is same when it comes to the fact that if the input cost goes up, the output revenue goes up, right? That model is not different. But there are a lot of nuances, right? It is, billing is not per transaction in WhatsApp, it's per session, it's per a 24-hour session, So there are nuances, but obviously input price goes up, the output goes up also.
Got it. And on the collection part.
But one other clarification, Sharad, is just from what Deepak mentioned, that was specifically on international messaging. So there is a huge price difference between international messaging and domestic messaging. But from a WhatsApp perspective, the pricing was not different. So there was a very big arbitrage of, WhatsApp being much cheaper than international SMS messaging, right? So that is getting normalized in some way with the price increase that WhatsApp was mentioning. It is not for domestic price, which is majority of the market today. Just to clarify that.
Got it. And on the receivable side, is it again similar that you collect to disperse, so it's basically negative working capital for the most part?
No. I cannot say it will be negative working capital, but it will not be too dilutive, right? I think on an average, you collect in about 60 odd days from invoicing, and you may pay in 60 odd days from invoicing. So it will be more neutral, I would say.
Got it. And do you expect the same kind of model for RCS when it gets implemented, or is it going to be different?
No, I think
so. Sharad, when it comes to RCS, okay, what the Google is trying to do is, at least for India, they have decided to go through telcos. Okay, the way we buy the SMS from the telcos, we do the same thing where the RCS is also same model. Effectively, we have to buy from the telcos, and we have to build the solutions on top of that and sell it to our customers, right? So the Google model is slightly different from WhatsApp. Google has decided to go through telcos. At least in India, I don't know much about the global market. They have to decide. But for India, they decided to go ahead with go through telcos. Whereas other OTT channels, including Truecaller and WhatsApp, we have nothing to do with the telcos. It is more to do with the OTT platforms.
Got it. And my last question, just to understand, after this rise in prices from WhatsApp, what is the gap between, call it the telco side, which is roughly 12.5 paisa, what is the catch-up coming up to now? Because, one of the debates here is the telcos have been complaining that OTT has been, have not had to spend any money on the infrastructure. We spend all this money, So the question then becomes, is there a regulatory move here where they now start asking Meta to pay money to compensate for the investment capital that the telcos have put together. Can you shed some light on that and how the price catch-up that's happening in July, how much of the gap that bridges?
So the Sharad, the way I see is it all depends on the use case. For example, the banks cannot afford to use WhatsApp or any OTT channel to disseminate one-time password. The central bank, which is RBI in this case, is not allowing any banks to send OTPs other than SMS. Okay. Other enterprises other than banks are allowed to send OTPs, right? Okay, that's number one, right? Number two, even in case of other use cases, the price per there is a bit of difference between WhatsApp is definitely expensive than SMS when it comes to pricing. Okay, what you're referring to is the ILD messages. Okay, for example, the telcos are selling at the 5 cents per SMS for ILD messages. And I think Deepak, I think WhatsApp is coming out with 3 cents. Okay, right?
About 3 cents, yes.
Yeah, 3 cents. Yes, 3 cents. So they are directly competing with the telcos because, like most of these messages are either from the Facebook or from the Google or from the Amazon. They're not regulated by either by the RBI or by any other regulator in India. So they're free to use whichever channel they want to use. So net effect, there is I strongly believe that the TAM of the ILD market may further reduce. Okay, but I think WhatsApp is going to eat into the ILD SMS messages, right? But when it comes to CPaaS providers like us, it doesn't really matter because our margins are same. It may have a bit of impact in terms of top line, but in terms of our margins, it's going to be intact.
Got it. The one thing that I'm just not able to grapple my head around it. Maybe it's just me being slow, but I would have thought that WhatsApp. I mean, obviously, I carry an India phone and I kind of get all these marketing messages, all these promotional messages, and it's especially from the banking perspective, now getting statements, doing transactions through WhatsApp has become really convenient. My logical brain tells me that the margin profile for WhatsApp, and I get this whole thing about who initiates the session. Is it the customer who initiates the session or the enterprise that initiates the session? There's a pricing differential there. I'm just not able to grapple the fact that the margins for the WhatsApp is similar to the traditional SMS margins. I would have thought it's a lot higher. And so I would have thought that as WhatsApp and RCS get a bigger proportion of enterprise revenues, I would have thought the margin profile for the enterprise business should actually be significantly higher. So, maybe you can just help me understand why the margins are the same.
So, in many ways, Sharad, I think it's also a question of where we are from an evolution standpoint, right? So today we are doing a lot of investments as far as the business is concerned. And you will find that, at a sense, everybody knows what is the input price. So there is always a certain amount of profitability on top, right? So if you look at WhatsApp, it's somewhere between, it's aligned to the domestic business, obviously, much better than the international business. But as we build more solutions, build more IP, we have a headroom for improvement in profitability. But as it stands today at the growth rate that we are doing right now, the profitability is broadly similar.
And just one last question on the pricing front, right? When you negotiate these prices, can you just help me understand the process? Because I know from a standpoint of when you were telcos, you're just a price taker, right? Is it similar to on the WhatsApp and RCS side, or there's some negotiating room there, like in terms of what you can carry from the enterprise side? Sorry.
There is negotiating room on both sides, right? You have negotiating room on the enterprise side, you have negotiating room on the supplier side, right? And that all is a subject of scale that you bring to the table, right? So to that extent, it is It is not very different in that sense, but the sale process, the value proposition tends to be very different when you're doing a solution sale on OTT compared to maybe, a transaction messaging that one is doing on SMS, right? So that process is different, but I wouldn't say some of the rules are not very different.
Got it. And is there any, I know we are early in the investment cycle, but is there a vision that you guys think that over time, as the volumes on WhatsApp, RCS, the OTT channels become significantly larger in the business profile? Again, I'm going back to the same question. Logically, I would think that given the investments that have been made, it's more attraction driven. Do you see this margin profile changing in the next 3 to 5 years?
What is that? So the margin profile of the OTT business, whether it will change over the next 3 to 5 years.
It's too early to comment.
It's early to comment. I think, let me put it this way, right? I think Uday made this point. We did our first win on the map platform from an RCS standpoint, right? The minute you have your map platform, chances are that you will run at much higher profitability, right? So in some way, OTTs will give you an opportunity both on the platform side and on the enterprise side. Now, at a collective basis, definitely you can drive higher profitability, right? But you will have to see how it evolves. Like today, I would say on Truecaller channel, we drive higher profitability.
Right? So, Sharad, the way I see is for any channel, even be it SMS, okay, even if you look at SMS, we have a revenue share at SMSC level, and we have a revenue share at the Trueblock level, which is a DLT platform. And then we have the margins at SMS when categories are value first and buy and sell as a channel, right? Okay. So the crux of the issue here is we need to have the platforms, right? And secondly, we need to have the control on end to end, right? From the telcos to enterprises, or in case when it comes to OTT, we'd like to deploy our platforms at OTT as well as with with the enterprise. That's where we have tremendous control in terms of quality of services and in terms of the better margins. Like for example, RCS, we have two choices. One is we just go and tie up with the telcos. There we have the margin is only on RCS, right? But the minute we deploy a platform with the telcos, okay, our margins will double by default. Not only we have the control on the quality services, but the margins will double. So my point is like, the enterprise business will drive the platform business. Okay, once we have the scale, once we have the volumes, they will allow us to deploy the platform either with the telcos or with the OTTs.
Got it. And I know I keep saying last question. This I promise is the last one. On the capitalization of expenses. So I know that the comment that was made in the shareholders letter is that you're capitalizing both the employee costs and the platform costs onto the balance sheet, obviously. Can you just give me a sense of, are you capitalizing 100% of the employee costs, or there's something that's flowing through the income statement for the platform side? And on the enterprise side, is there a similar dynamic, or all of that is being expensed to the income statement?
Yeah. So, the straightforward answer to the question is it's not all of the expenses. It is people who are working on the product development of new products where there is a new revenue stream. And that is the only component of the employee cost that is getting capitalized, right? Which are purely working. So people who are on support, people who are,
So in other words, in case of value first and categories, we expense it out 100% of our salaries. That's number one. When it comes to Tanla, wherever we have to run garages, we will expense it off. Wherever we have build garages, in the sense like the platforms are still in the build phase, where the salary of that garage will be capitalized. Am I clear?
Okay. Yeah, and just to follow up to that, and what is the typical split? Like, I mean, I'm guessing I don't want to throw numbers there, but is the employee cost working on product development 80% of the cost and the tech is 20%? Like, what is the split between employee versus product?
So it depends, right? When the platform is under the build, okay, most of the money is going to be salaries, okay, right? But once it goes to the deployment, okay, then it's other way around. Like, we need to deploy with a lot of hardware, a lot of stack, a lot of, we need to integrate with a lot of tools and so on and so forth. Okay. During the build, it's going to be mainly employee cost. When it goes to deployment, it's other way around.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take that as the last question. I now hand the conference call over to Ms. Ritu Mehta for closing comments.
Thank you, everyone. In case we could not take your questions due to time constraint, please feel to reach out to Investor Relations team. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Tanla Platforms Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines. Thank you.